Hey there, this is John from Heroes and Legends, and welcome to part 2 of our 4-part look at Commander 2017 upgrades. Today we're going to focus on the Draconic Domination deck. Yesterday we looked at the Cat deck, of course today we're looking at Dragons, and over the course of the next few days we will come back to the last 2 decks, Vampires and Wizards. Now, if you saw yesterday's video, you kind of know what to expect here. I'm going to go over some general upgrades for this deck. Some cards in a variety of different price ranges. I try to go as cheap as possible. That could be good inclusions to upgrade and put an extra competitive edge to the deck once you get it out of the box. Now, in these type of videos, I typically don't talk about the mana bases because many times they are self-explanatory. But because this is a 5-color deck, I want to spend a little bit of time on it, and we will discuss that today. Quickly before we get started, though, if you check out the description below, you'll find a couple ways to support us. You'll find some Amazon links down there. Any purchases you make via those links, a small percentage will help us out. Also, you'll find our Patreon page linked below as well. Both are always appreciated. With that being said, let's get into the cards for today. We're going to start off with some creatures. Now, for the most part, I think they gave you a pretty good suite of creatures just out of the box here. A lot of great dragons, especially the new cards. There's some really cool new dragons that are included here. But there's a few upgrades that I thought of. So let's look at them quickly. First off, upgrading to your Dragon Lords from the other versions that were included. I think in some cases anyway, a lot of players may want to do that. Now, some of these aren't cheap, though, and I think that's the thing you have to consider. The first couple especially can be a tad expensive. Dragon Lord Atarka at $5. That's not too bad. I mean, great enters the battlefield effect here. Dragon Lord Jamoka at $7.93, though, is a little bit expensive, as maybe not for everybody. But if you do work this into your deck, what's kind of sweet about it is it protects you on your turn, so you can play your stuff, don't have to worry about counter magic and such in most cases. And Jamoka itself can't be countered, which is nice, not to mention the whole lifelink part. Dragon Lord Coleman, this one's kind of interesting. It's a little bit cheaper at $273. What's funny about this one is that last ability there really doesn't do a whole lot in the world of Commander, obviously, but I love the other creatures you control have haste, and this itself has haste. So you get a 6/5 flying haste creature that's going to give all your other stuff coming into play haste after that. Really, really sweet card when you're trying to play these big dragons and you're using a lot of your resources. This is going to speed things up a little bit. Dragon Lord Ojutai starting to creep up there in price, but at $475, still a pretty decent inclusion. And finally, Dragon Lord Solmagar at $399, a card that can be a big swing, even though power and toughness is maybe not as big as some of these other dragons we'll be looking at in this deck, but at the same time, the death touch is kind of nice. But most importantly, when this enters the battlefield, gain control of target creature or planeswalker. That can be a big swing in a game of Commander. Alright, let's look at some non-Dragon Lord creatures here. And the first one is Birds of Paradise. I picked the Magic 2012 edition right now because it is the cheapest version of the card. And I did that with all the cards that have multiple versions you'll see today. $5.99. It amazes me this card is $5.99 considering how many times it's been printed at this point. It's had a ton of printings, but it's just a wildly popular card for a lot of formats and a really good, useful card in this particular deck because it's going to help you with that mana base. Progenitus, $11.26 for the original Complex version. You can also get the Modern Masters reprint from the first Modern Masters, which is about the same price-wise. It's just a few cents more right now. But this is a card that works really well with Ramos the Dragon Engine, obviously. And finally, Vizier of the Menagerie. We got a new one from Amonkhet, $4.46. And this is fantastic because not only does it periodically give you a little bit of card advantage by being able to cast a creature from the top of your library, but what I really like about it in this deck is you may spend mana as though it were mana of any type to cast creature spells. Alright, let's look at a lone planeswalker. This one, Sarkhan Unbroken, just feels like it was just made for this deck. It was too bad that it wasn't included in some ways. $4.93 right now for the card, and it's just perfect. The +1 ability, letting you draw a card and add a mana of any color to your mana pool, completely makes sense in this deck. The -2, putting a 4/4 red dragon creature token with flying on the battlefield. And that -8, if he ultimates, search your library for a number of dragon creature cards and put them into the battlefield and shuffle. That's insane. So, yeah, the card is perfect for this deck. All right, let's look at a couple sorceries. The first one being Dragonstorm, and 97 cents for the original one. Nice budget option. And even if you don't use the Storm piece of this card, just searching your library for a red and 8 to pull any dragon out and put it right into play is really, really sweet. You have some amazing targets, some really hard to cast dragons that are available to you in this deck. Dragonstorm makes it possible to maybe dig for something you really want and perhaps cast something you might not be able to cast normally at that point of the game. Savage Twister, 21 cents. This one I mentioned when we were talking about the main deck review, and I said that there were a lot of ways for this deck to deal with ground creatures like Earthquake. I was a little surprised there weren't some ways to deal with a problematic flyer. And yeah, in some ways it feels counterintuitive because a lot of your stuff's flying. You don't typically want to damage your stuff too much, but at the same time you have some big creatures. So if your opponent has small flyers, Savage Twister is a nice utility card to deal with something like that. So I like this card in this particular build. I mean, you have to be careful where and how you use it, obviously, but I think it's a nice option to have. Let's move on to one enchantment. This one's actually a reserve list card, Dream Halls, $8.49 from Stronghold, so it's not cheap. It's not a card that's going to get any cheaper, though, either. And if you're not familiar with this card, basically it costs 5, it's an enchantment. Instead of paying the casting cost for a spell of any color, its caster may choose and discard a card that shares at least one color with that spell. If the spell has X in its casting cost, X is 0. So this does work for everybody. I think it's important noting because it does say instead of paying the casting cost for a spell of any color, its caster may choose, not you. So you do have to keep that in mind that maybe this could backfire in certain situations, but this deck is really set up to take advantage of this card, obviously. All right, let's look at some artifacts. We'll have some color fixing here, starting off with Chromatic Lantern. I don't know what to say about this card. You can get the original version for $9.49. There was a version in Commander 2016, which is about the same price as well. I feel like this is going to get a reprint soon, maybe in Iconic Masters. I feel like it would make sense there. Hopefully we'll see that, so it's a little bit of a risky pickup right now, but it is very necessary for a lot of Commander decks, so I could understand biting the bullet and spending the $10 on the card and risking the fact that it may go temporarily down in price soon, but at the same time, it's just such a huge staple for these type of decks. Door to Nothingness, you can find the Plane Chase version for about $1.04. There's other versions out there that are comparable, though, if you prefer the other art, and again, this is going to work really good with Ramos. Dragon Arch. This is a great budget option at $1.89 from Apocalypse. It was an uncommon then. 5 to cast, 2 and then tap and put a multicolor creature card from your hand into play. Great way to circumvent some of the tough mana requirements you're going to find in this deck. Urza's Incubator. So you can get the original for $8.06. The Commander 2015 version you can pick up as well. That one's going to be a little more expensive though right now. So originally I was looking at this card. I thought this really works in any tribal deck, but I picked it for this one in particular because dragons do have high casting costs attached to them. So I thought, you can get a lot of value out of it here. Unfortunately, while I've been making the video and putting these together, this card started to spike, and I guess a lot of people are thinking along the same lines I was thinking. So this saw a pretty good spike this week, actually. So week to week, this one's up $1 to $2, but the other version, the Commander 2015 version, actually spiked even harder. So it just happened. I did notice if you check out some marketplaces, I still found this card available for $4 to $5. It hasn't caught up to all the sellers yet, so you might be able to find a deal if you look today. But this card is going up. It's going up fast. All right, let's look at lands. Now, I mentioned at the top of the show, I usually don't talk about land bases too much because they are self-explanatory. When you build a commander deck and you're trying to upgrade something like this out of the box, you're going to look at things like, hey, what do I have available to me? Do I own any dual lands? Well, if you do, you're real lucky, and yeah, they're great. Do you own any of the fetch lands? Yeah, absolutely. If you do, you're going to put them in there. Shock lands are good options as well. Filter lands are good options. So a lot of them we kind of know. I mean, obviously, if we can put something into play that's going to give us more than one color, and we can either search it up with a fetch, or else it's going to come into play untapped, it's going to be better usually than what they give us in these particular products. However, since this is a 5-color mana base, I wanted to go beyond that a little bit and talk about some other options you could have to make this deck more consistent for you. Now, all those things I just mentioned, dual land, shock lands, fetch lands, yeah, if you have them, they're great, use them, they're awesome. But we're going to look at some different things today. First couple are some cheap options from the most recent block. We have Cascading Cataracts, only 70 cents. Indestructible land. If you pay 5 and tap it, you get to add 5 mana in any combination of colors to your mana pool. Again, just helping you circumvent some of those tough mana requirements if you stumble. Survivor's Encampment, only 14 cents from Hour of Devastation. Maybe not ideal because you do have to tap an untapped creature you control to get the color out of it, but if you do it, add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. Again, in certain situations, you might be very happy to have it. Alright, let's go a little bit higher now in the price range to Ancient Ziggurat. This is $3.50 for the Slivers deck version, which is actually a foil, and it's about $1 cheaper than the other version, the original version of this card. So you can pick this up for a pretty reasonable price and even get a foil out of it, but it is perfect for this deck. It gives you mana of any color. You can only use it on creature spells, though, but you'll be happy to do so in this deck. City of Brass, $4.43 for the 5th edition version. This is the cheapest current version right now. Probably not a lot of people's favorite art, although it has its charm, I think. So if you want to pay slightly more to get the more recent art, which is a little more eye-catching, or if you wanted to go high roller and pick up an Arabian Nights version, you could. But just generally, this card is going to be perfect for what you're trying to do here. Crystal Quarry, $3.62. This one's from Odyssey, very similar to the card we just looked at from Amonkhet. It does tap for colorless mana, but it also, if you pay 5 and tap, will give you 1 of each color mana this time. Grand Coliseum, 86 cents. This is a great budget card, and it does enter the battlefield tapped, so it's a little bit slow, but after that it just becomes a 5-color pain land, basically. Mana Confluence at $6.26. Very similar, although it does play a little bit different from City of Brass, so be careful with that. And finally, Reflecting Pool. This is the conspiracy version of the card at $9. And what's awesome about this card, yes, it's starting to creep a little bit higher now, close to the $10 mark. But in conjunction with cards like Mana Confluence or Grand Coliseum, for example, it taps, it doesn't come into play tap, and it taps for a mana of any color that any of your other lands could produce. So if you have these lands that can produce a mana of any color, great combo with Reflecting Pool. You don't have to worry about any sort of drawbacks necessarily with the card other than setting up the play with another land. Alright, the last thing I wanted to mention is one card for the high rollers, Cavern of Souls. This is the original version at $49.61. You could get the Modern Masters 2017 version for about the same price. At the time of recording, it was listed at $49.99, so they're pretty comparable. Now, this is an investment, sure, but the only thing I will say about this card is we don't know when this is going to get reprinted again. It was just reprinted in Modern Masters 2017. Unfortunately, it was as a Mythic, which kept the value of the card relatively high, and it is going up currently, as you can imagine. So, yeah, you know what? This is great, again, in all types of tribal decks, in many different formats. Again, that's what warrants this huge price tag, but it's especially nice in this Dragon deck, quite honestly. Alright, with that being said, I hope that helps a little bit. What these videos are all about is to give you some ideas to get you thinking. It's not necessarily about going through and picking each of the cards that I mentioned, but getting you to think about what cards you think you would like to upgrade and what direction you'd like to take the deck in. And again, there's different price points here. I try to go as budget as possible, quite honestly, although I have to admit it was kind of hard with this deck. A lot of the things you see here were more in the $4 or $5 range than I typically do. Usually a lot of my picks are in the $1, $2 range or even less than $1. But it's tough with 5 colors. I've noticed that because 5-color commander decks are a pretty popular thing out there, and they have been for quite some time, that these mana bases and these cards that play well with 5 colors, and especially well with tribal cards, and we have all these new tribal decks coming out, the price points of these cards have gone up quite a bit over the last few years, many in the last few weeks. So I think that's kind of worth pointing out. But whenever possible, I think we did find a few good budget options here this time around. So until next time, thanks for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe, and have a great day. Hey, thanks for watching. This video is made possible by the generous support of viewers like you on Patreon. Check out the description below for links to our Patreon page as well as our Amazon affiliate store, where a small percentage of all sales will also help support the channel. Finally, if you haven't had a chance yet to subscribe, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any new videos on Heroes and Legends. Talk to you again soon, and have a great day.